Hey, so you're welcome to African Researchers Network. And basically, this is our website, and I'll just introduce what we do and what African Researchers Network is all about. So we an academic hub registered in the UK as a community interest organization, and it's both open to Africans and non-Africans, and irrespective of their discipline and their academic stage in their academic career. And the purpose is to encourage collaboration and networking, academic publications, brainstorming, and having conversations on issues, publications, and works and across. And part of the two major things we do, which is the webinars, which we have been having for over 2 years, monthly webinars, inviting speakers across board to discuss various issues, current issues in different disciplines. And then you can always have access to that on our YouTube channel, as well as our website. And the second thing which we do is also the newsletter. We have monthly newsletters which will give you updates on what is going on. And you can always get this directly through your mail. So what you need to do to get the newsletter from African Researchers Network is to, you go to this lower part on the homepage, and then you just type in ARN newsletter and you subscribe to it. And that's basically two major things we are doing currently. We still have a lot of things in mind. And then you can read about our directors, board of trustee, and other things. And if you're interested in being part of ARN, you are always free to join us. Today, we are having one of those webinar series, and that is the October webinar, which we are featuring two of our guest speakers. Today, we're having Dr. Sabine Balsen, and then we also having Sharon A. Boyo. And these are two guest speakers that we have today. Currently in this platform, we have Dr. Sabine, she's already here, and then we hope Sharon's going to log in soon, or maybe she has logged in. And then the order of event goes thus, where we keep to time. So we're going to have Sabine's presentation after an introduction. We're going to have her present between 15 to 20 minutes, and then we introduce the second speaker, and then the second speaker takes the floor for that 15 to 20 minutes, and then we have a summary. And there will just be 10 minutes of digital actors vision, which is a project that may be of interest and you may like to collaborate with. And then we have the Q&A section, which is a panel where all of us can be part of it, ask questions based on the presentations or some of the works of the speakers that you have read. And that will last for a few minutes, and we call it a day. So at this point, well, without much ado, we are going to go straight to the presentation by Dr. Sabine, and I'm going to read our bio, why I highlight her. She's going to be the main person that will be pinned down now, and we can be able to see her. And so who is Dr. Sabine Balsen? She's an anthropologist and ethnographic filmmaker from Germany. She holds a bachelor, an MA from Free University, and a PhD in anthropology from the New School for Social Research in New York. So Sabine has taught at In Lingua School of Languages in New York, the Rhode Island School of Design, Ball State University, Indiana, the University of Technology in Papua New Guinea. And she has lived in rural southeast Nigeria, which was, she lived there for between that 76 and 1978 and 1979, and continuously returned and researched there since then. So she's the author of the book, The Water Goddess in Igbo Cosmology, published by Trenton, New Jersey African World Press in 2008. The monogram informed by the devotees, women and men who inspired African Force International, published female author, that's Flora Nwapa, and the Mami Water in Igbo Culture, which is also published in 2014. So Sabina has published numerous other articles and anthologies, and you can always have access to that. We've sent the link to our detailed bios to you. You can always read that and also have access to our website and our email. And she's a former editor-in-chief of Dialectical Anthropology. She vacillates between New York and Bavarian countries, and she's currently working on a memo entwining her German background and experiences in Nigeria. So join us in welcoming virtually guest speaker, our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Sabine Jal Basin. Over to you, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, you have deactivated.
Yeah, now you can share. Let me allow you to share. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to make you a host so that no one will interrupt when you are presenting.
No, it doesn't come up. I'm trying to.
Accept. There's something I'm sending to you now. Accept it. Okay. Have you accepted the link? I sent something. You accept to be the host. Now you can share. Share now. Can you share now? Please.
But I don't know.
If you click on share screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, it's right here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, here we got it. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored, and I will talk about Mami Water, who is also known as Mami Water. My presentation seeks to demonstrate Mami Water's African origin and identity, contrary to some prominent authors who maintain that she has foreign origins. I will look at this at Mami Water from several angles. First of all, I'll briefly discuss the English name and the art history of the Mami Water icon. Then I'll mention archaeological research and initiate scholarship, comparative religious mythological dimensions, an ethnographic case study of Mami Water among the Igbo, Mami Water's worldwide inspirations in fiction, fine art, and music. Oh, it's gone. Wait, where is it? Why do I lose this? Finally, Caribbean connections, Christian rhetoric, and culture matters. Mami Water is known in multiple spellings. The generic Igbo equivalent for Mami Water is Miri, Mother Water, applied to various local deities, according to Dr. Mrs. Chinwe Achebe. Let's briefly take a look at the history of the Mami Water icon. The foremost scholar who has done a lot of research and published widely on Mami Water is Henry Joual. And he describes that the Mami Water poster, the image you've just seen, was designed in Germany in the late 19th century. It reached the Guinea coast around 1900, and in 1901, a shrine sculpture at Bonny closely resembled the German print. The original poster was reprinted in India around 1955 and reintroduced to West Africa, where it is printed and copied in paintings and sculptures ever since. However, the earliest images of primordial semi-human water beings in the Kalahari Desert of southern Africa are nearly 28,000 years old. Sometimes Mami Water sports a fishtail. We see this in the wall relief of the river goddess Oshun at Oshogbo, a mermaid sculpture from Senegal, a batik by Yemisi, and a healer's signboard in Lagos. Note the pythons and the emphasis on healing. In my view, there are limitations of the art history perspective on Mami Wata. Art historians link African mermaid-like images to the arrival of figureheads on European ships in the 15th century. Still, prehistoric images of African mermaids existed in ancient Egypt, according to Mama Zogbe, an African-American scholar and initiate priestess of Mami Wata in Togo. Art historic discussions of Mami Wata feature, presuppose they focus on the print and on objects, and they presuppose a foreign origin, I quote, a foreign origin thoroughly incorporated into local beliefs and practices. Moreover, some authors interpret whiteness and long hair to indicate European racial features. These speculations on non-African origins or a foreign cult are presumptions that obscure complex indigenous belief systems. On the other hand, ethnographers, initiate scholars such as Mama Zogbe, psychologists such as Dr. Mrs. Achebe, and studies in comparative religions and mythologies demonstrate that discussions of Mami Wata must include underlying ancient belief systems and connections, elementary myths and philosophy. The renowned Nigerian author Flora Nwapa was puzzled when confronted with the foreign origins thesis. She said, it has always been there. Water is the living thing. Now, I want to focus briefly on the Egyptian or North African connection. On the right-hand side, you see an Egyptian sculpture of a torso entwined by a serpent from the 1st century BC. I found it in the museum in Berlin. And you will note the resemblance to the Mami Wata image, which was presumably informed by Indian connections but this image was from Germany in the 19th century. Note the serpents encircling the bodies, and also the skirt, which kind of resembles the skirt in the Mami Wata print. Actually, Egyptian designs were very prominent in Germany in the 19th century. In ancient Egypt, a serpent signals continuity of life and the pharaoh's power, Jet's power. This is on the left, you see an image from a cartouche from a burial ground, which is from Egypt 2400 BC. And I also found this in a museum in Berlin. On the right-hand side, I actually don't know if you can see it. Can people see this behind the images, behind our pictures? On the right-hand side, you see that Jet was a model renamed Ted for a company logo in Germany in 1889. I also want to explore Mami Wata's connection to Isis and Cybele. Cybele is also known as Cybele, a Roman name for priests or priestesses of the Egyptian goddess Isis. Incidentally, the Mami Wata icon's balanced composure, her gaze, and centrally parted hair recall images of Isis. The Cybeles of pre-Christian North Africa, Ethiopia, the ancient Mediterranean, and the pre-Islamic Middle East were wise women and men working as oracles or diviners, priests and priestesses of an African mother goddess. They also acted as healers and were associated with the python. And Mama Zogbe, the chief Onun Amengasi and initiated priestess of Mami Wata, has done considerable research on the subject. So we may ask, why did the German image known as Mami Wata become so popular in Africa? I would like to look at the characteristic elements of the image. Two serpents, locally identified as pythons, encircle Mami Wata. They signal healing and the continuation of life in birth, death, and reincarnation. Then water, an undefined multicolored background, suggests muddy waters and signals life-giving, sustaining powers. An enigmatic, most likely female human body emerges from water. The body's concealed lower part suggests ambivalent sexuality of female, male, or both, or it might conceal a fishtail. Abundant hair suggests fertility. Female hair was kept from public view in many worldwide cultures, and also this abundant hair parted in the middle is a feature of the Egyptian mother goddess Isis. Then we have the color combination of red or yellow and white or blue, representing male and female complementarity and procreation. Finally, there is a childlike figure. A childlike figure appears in the lower right corner. We should also look at mummy water in comparative religions and mythology, and we will note that the image's elements, pythons, water, woman, abundant hair, and the red and white color symbolism are worldwide mythological themes. Serpents, and the python in particular, are awarded a special status in all world religions and nearly all world religions and mythologies, especially in Africa. The ancient myths, these ancient myths contrast the creature's negative image in the Middle Eastern Judeo-Christian Islamic belief system. The Igbo people invoked the python's encircling grip to defeat enemies, as illustrated on an ancient war drum. A sculpture of the earth goddess, water goddess, or Mother Nature is holding pythons at the Mbari Museum at Owerri. The python was once sacred among the Ijaw, Edo, and Igbo people, as well as among the Fon of Benin in the former Dahomey. The creature must not be harmed and was buried like a human being if accidentally killed. The serpent's worldwide unique position in antiquity is due to its capacity to shed its skin and continuously move and bridging between life and death. This quality associates the creature with medicine in antiquity. The medic's Asclepian wand signals the serpent's connection to healing powers. I'm not sure if you can see these images, because I can see our own images on the side. Similarly, the Yoruba Orisha Inle, the divine physician, is portrayed entwined by pythons. As a messenger of the supreme being, the python could bring life or death. Relatives of a sick person hanging in between might fear the serpent's message. The python can signal death. In a chalk drawing by a mummy water priest and healer, a central circle represents the python, and in this case, death. Two half circles face away from each other along the arms of the cross. They indicate the separation of body and soul at death, body and mind at death. The underlying cross consists of double lines or paths representing the crossroads or transitions from life to death. Mummy water's abundant hair, water, and the pythons signal fertility derived from the life-giving and sustaining force of water. Freshwater lakes and rivers were once credited with granting procreation. I hope you can see the shrine sculpture on the right. This is a shrine sculpture for the river goddess Awa and her husband. And Awa, the female, is on the right-hand side. You can see her breast, and you can also see that many things have been offered to her. She has a chalk marking number 1, and the male is marked number 2 on the lower left side. These waters could be male or female or androgynous. For example, villagers once prayed for children to Uhamri, the goddess of Oguta Lake, and her husband Urashi, or to the goddess Awa and her husband at Ukana, and many more places. The priesthood of the fundamental forces of nature was inherited. Vocation was an additional prerequisite and also an alternative access route to this office. So, for example, you see on the left the hereditary priest of Oguta's lake goddess sitting below a photo of the Pope in 1987. When he converted to Christianity, his daughter took over and she became a mummy water priestess of the same lake goddess. The story of one Mami Water priestess at Oguta too illustrates the connection between Mami Water's worship and healing. The woman's vocation began with a personal crisis after she had lost 11 of her 13 children, all of her baby boys. She was considered mad. A local herbalist and devotee of the water goddess treated and gradually healed her and initiated her in stages of achievement into the complete priesthood and knowledge of medical herbs and roots. The Obuefi Izimri became the Mami Water priestess and a widely recognized healer and diviner. The theme of priesthood, divination, and healing echoes the ancient Sibyl who handles pythons. And on the Hila signboard of the Izimri, we can see an image of Mami Water on the left-hand side, representing the goddess of Oguta Lake, Uhamari. On the right-hand side, you see another image representing the goddess's husband, the river god Urashi. And at the center, there is the priestess in a white dress holding a python and attending to a patient, in this case, a mental patient who is shackled. Want to take a brief look at Mami Water's role in the circle of time and reincarnation. Death does not destroy the soul in this belief system. The soul will eventually reincarnate in another body. At death, the individual is crossing waters reminiscent of the river Styx in ancient Greek mythology, when the dead person travels to the underworld Hades. Still, in African mythology, the individual about to reincarnate must travel and through water again and confront the water goddess. She challenges the person poised for reincarnation, and she may grant the individual his or her wish to change their destiny. In that case, if the goddess grants the wish to change a person's destiny, the reincarnated person must serve the goddess. Failure to do this may cause illness, madness, or death in this belief system. Mami Water priests and priestesses often address patients' fertility and insanity issues. When women could not live up to their society's reproductive norms and resulting social pressures, they ultimately became Mami Water devotees. The renowned author Flora Nwapa, who hailed from Oguta, addressed these issues in her novels. Mami Water devotees are extraordinary people. Contrary to carefully groomed African hairstyles, followers of Mami Water may wear dreadlocks, signaling their visionary, unusual state of mind. The costumes of Mami Water devotees also differ from ordinary clothing. They wear colors corresponding to the deity they serve: white to honor the water goddess and red to honor the deity's husband. The colors red and white represent conjugal cooperation and procreation. White represents the female side of the universe and coolness. The white color signals transition from one stage of life to another. For example, in birth, from childhood to adulthood, from girl to mother, from the spirit world to the world of the living, and vice versa, from life to death. The female water deity requires white animals for sacrifice. Her devotees wear white. Blue may substitute for white. The whiteness associated with water and transition to and from the spirit world must not be confused with white as in white race, as suggested by some foreign authors. White kaolin or chalk on the Mami Water priestess's front signals her altered state of mind in communication with the spirit world while traveling on the lake. Yellow chalk or edo is added to white markings made with nzu on the body objects or the ground. If you look closely at this image of the ground drawing in chalk, you will see the little yellow speckles. Yellow is a substitute for red. Red represents the male side, heave and life force like blood gushing from a slain body. Yellow edo or red blood is added to white kaolin nzu in ritual or sacrifice. The Mami Water posters contrasting colors, blue, white, or red and yellow, have local significance, validating the image. Mami Water is enigmatic and transcends a permanent shape. She or he sparkles in many colors like the rainbow, is beyond gender, age, and color. She or he may be supportive or threatening like the python. The artist Twin77 painted a colorful, fearsome, pregnant Mami Water with multiple eyes and dreadlocks turning into snakes. Mami Water inspires artists all over the world. For example, the novel Lagoon by Nigerian-American apocalyptic fiction writer Nnedi Okorafor in Lagos features a fearsome, enigmatic creature of the sea, and it was inspired by reading about the lake goddess Okpuide. Victor Uwaifor assures his audience of Mami Water's benevolence in his famous 1967 song, Guitar Boy, if you see Mami Water, never, never you run away. Before colonizing Africa, European traders had already abducted and transported African people to the Americas and the Caribbean. Remnants of pre-Christian, pre-colonial African beliefs survived. The colonial name Mami Water is not common in the Caribbean. Still, a widely distributed iconic sculpture of a woman with snakes resembles the original Mami Water image. In contrast to Mami Water icons' obscure sex, the Caribbean sculpture clearly depicts a woman with a child, admired for her fertility. She is associated with Mother Earth and also the saint Santa Marta. African deities were merged with Christian saints in the Caribbean. Santa Marta, the water goddess, is volatile and powerful. She brings and sustains life, yet also harbors death. A little amulet from the Haitian market in the Dominican Republic illuminates her twofold character. Mami Water appears on the front and death on the back. Papa Cemetière. The Igbo name Kego is a short for Nwaka Ego. It means child is better than money. Villagers once regarded the life-giving forces of nature with awe. Christian proselytism preaches the dominance of and exploitation of nature. Increased urbanization, modernization, and Christian proselytism have undermined pre-Christian beliefs in reincarnation, traditional values, concepts of wealth, and the perception of women. Money has replaced children as the most significant asset. Christian proselytes denigrate Mami Water's life-affirming message and call to discard your Mami Water. Time is no longer circular. Death is no longer a transition. Life no longer continues, and water is no longer the medium of transition, granting life and reincarnation. The shrine sculptures of the river goddess Ava and her husband were beheaded by fanatic Christians. In the Christian narration, God is portrayed as a white male European elder. The fall condemns the female side as dangerous, and wicked rather than adored for giving life, or for a fertile, benevolent, and powerful mother goddess morphed into disdain for women as a beautiful object of desire, and Christian preachers condemn the worship of a female divinity and spread fear. The python, once sacred and reserved as God's messenger, is now defamed as a harbinger of evil. People no longer respect the woman who handles snakes and communicates the python's divine messages. Since the late 1990s, witchcraft accusations have targeted especially Mami Water devotees. In 2006, charismatic Christians accused a highly skilled and widely respected herbalist, diviner, and priestess of Mami Water at Ubuta of witchcraft. They attacked and nearly killed the elderly woman and chased her away from home. She died of a broken heart in 2007. The parish priest gave a sermon in English rather than in Igbo at her funeral. The priestess' daughter, who had forced the woman to repent, praised her mother's late conversion to Christianity in a roaring speech. The people spoke of an abomination. The deceased woman took a wealth of knowledge about the medicinal properties of the local flora into her grave. The community now lacks an urbanist who understands the relationship between body and mind, health and African spirituality, local custom, and the conflict between behavioral norms and individuality. Contemporary, and what is very scary is that contemporary Nigerian cases of witch hunting of Mamiwata devotees and female priestesses recall the gruesome practice of witch hunting targeting predominantly female midwives and healers in medieval Europe. Culture matters. The abuse of people, their traditions, and indigenous knowledge is an impediment to self-esteem, personal fulfillment, and development. The superiority-inferiority complex destroys the identification, the individual, and his identity, and is equally exploitative on the international level. In 2008, The Nation reported the destruction of shrines by Christian fanatics as slaughter of the gods. In an ensuing online discussion, historian Adele Afikpo warned, I quote, "To embrace new ways of doing and being is one thing. To completely turn your back on the old ways of doing and being, which kept you going for millennia and which brought you to the point where you were able to embrace new ways, is an entirely different thing. It signifies death of the essence. The lasting colonial," unquote, "the lasting colonial mentality favors European American achievements while degrading and destroying indigenous knowledge, achievement, and beliefs and cultures in Africa. Colonial mentality makes us appear to be ashamed of our culture, custom, and values, according to Nkuzi Nam. In conclusion, we may summarize that Mamiwata is a dynamic part of the African cultural heritage, capable of making her home anywhere in the contemporary world. Thank you. Okay. Hello.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is interesting. Yeah, you can see virtual claps and some things in the chat. And I would just, I can make a full summary of Dr. Sabayi's conversation because it's a little bit a compressed version of what she discussed in our book. But the basic points that I pick from this presentation is the fact that she exposed what, you know, the spirituality and the cultural and artistic representation of Mamiwata. She exposed what it was before the colonial times and the efficacies and the meaning of various aspects of the arts that were designs, like the python and the representations of both males and females, and the usefulness and the pragmatic relevance of even the worship, because like the way other gods that are worshipped in most Africa is actually for an utilitarian purpose, for a particular purpose. And then this she gives in sense of those who are not fulfilling their role as women, they turn to devotees of Mamiwata. But she now transcended to the point that she illustrated how the colonial era changed everything and how, say, other art forms were emerged. Some arts emerged in order to make those previous ones negative, like the python being pierced on the throat and indicating demon. And, you know, part of what, even the way she was presenting is like, you know, she's the rationality behind people abandoning and embracing what negates a reality that's, you know, is indigenous to them, seems oblivion from the presentation that, you know, all of a sudden, you know, those things were demonized. Even the goddess has to be buried in a very way, and I mean the priest, the chief, and other things, and then the current ongoing attitudes towards the whole idea of Mamiwata by Christians, invasions of shrines, and all these other things. And, as I was growing up with a Christian mentality. And even though my church or the denomination I belong to did not say that Mami Water is evil or anything, but all other gods, all other gods, they are nothing. There's only one God. And the image we have is an image of an European male, an European female, Blessed Virgin Mary, and all these things. But there was a song I used to hear, which is that of the Victor Wifo, which is cited in your work, which is, if you see Mami Water, will never, never you run away. Hey, and I was wondering, why would this man talk about not running away? Why was it portraying Mami Water in that way? And there's also among the contemporary young people an understanding of what like if a lady is beautiful, fair in complexion, pretty, and with a Disney eye and everything, and they quickly say this is a Mami Water. And most times in some churches, if ministers are moving around, they don't even need to ask or to investigate. They just know this one is a Mami Water, this one is a Mami Water. And there's this whole idea of beautiful ladies becoming Mami Water and all. But that's the linear interpretation that could be given to maybe Victor Wifo's song. But from this presentation, your presentation is an exposition. Is an exposition of what you have observed, of what you have studied for years, and of what I feel you're part of as Nwanyi, as a chief, a chief in that culture. And one thing that I try to say is your presentation also raised some questions. It raised some questions which I know that we have all the experts and other people from various fields who are going to engage with this conversation at this webinar. So thank you so much for your presentation and your time. And we're going to move to, we're going to open the floor now for what we call it. We're going to open the floor for discussion. We're going to open the floor. We're going to because the second speaker is not here, and so that we won't lose track. So if you have your video, you can on your videos now, other participants that are here. And then if you have your question, engage with her so that we won't be able to lose track of what we have. And then we're going to have the second speaker come in. We have a lot of people in the waiting room. We are not admitting. We want to scrutinize people before we admit them because we have had an incident at the beginning of the webinar. So thank you very much. Participants, you can drop your questions in the chat now. You can unmute yourself. So I've enabled you to unmute yourself. You can indicate with your hand up. You can start your video, but please make your questions to be brief if you have a question. So Dr. Sydney, yeah, so you can, my first question to Dr. Sabine has to do with the representation of Mami Water. And the fact that you are an ethnographer and also anthropologist. And I know that you did not just observe the people, but you seem to have participated in it. So if you can shed light on your participation and your experience of the efficacy of, beyond the artistic aspect, what are the other things that you can say from your own non-observational but participatory point of view? Can outline that briefly, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I lived there first time in 78, 79 for a year. And I was actually invited by a Mami Water priestess to her home and to her regular sessions. And I understood that they were praising and praying to the lake goddess of Buide. At the time, I wasn't not sure people said, okay, these are the Mami Water worshippers, and then there's Ogbuide and there is a hereditary priest. And I was uncertain about the difference between the traditional hereditary priest and the Mami Water worshippers. And people just said, oh, you can have a personal choice. If you want to, pray to the water deity for children, for example, it's your personal choice if you go to a Mami Water priestess or you go to the traditional priest. So this was very interesting and very confusing to me. And I didn't understand. In the beginning, I was really wondering about the difference between, if there was a difference between Mami Water and the traditional, so to speak, lake goddess. So I discussed it with Flora and Wappa, and Flora and Wappa said it all. She said, it's always been there. Water is the life-giving thing. And, sometimes what's closest and nearest, you don't understand that. It takes you a while to figure it out. So I've learned a lot about it, about water and the importance of water to life as the life-giving force. And it becomes clear that, many people overlook the importance of water, but still, you can, astronauts are traveling to space. They are looking at other stars and the universe, and they're always trying to find life. And when they travel to other planets, they usually look for water, because water is an indication that this other planet might support life, that there's life there. And you find it, it's a search going on forever. So this is a very important thing that I learned. Water is a source, a source and sustaining life, one, and the importance of children. I didn't realize that originally, that you really pray to this goddess for children. Nowadays, people pray for a professional success, for money, for this and that and the other. And it really took me a while to figure it out. It takes time, and you only learn when you participated in it. I should also mention that I also nearly died at some point, and that also sort of helped me to understand things better. And also change my perspective, of course. More questions?
Thank you very much. Dr. Kuniji is here, and I think he takes over from the moderation, says I also have a presentation. So Dr. Kuniji, over to you. We're engaging with a question and answer section with Dr. Sabine. And
okay, thank you very much. I'll start with a huge apology for my lateness, and I think I also misled the second speaker, because I had checked on Google what time, the local time for 5 p.m. GMT, and I was told it's 7 p.m. in South Africa and also 7 p.m. in Germany. So, and I told that to the second speaker. So she probably will be joining at 7 p.m. in Germany. So the lateness is my fault. The fact that she's not here is my fault. I really apologize.
Well, I've reached out to her, and she'll be joining soon. So we'll take the presentation before us, after the
Q&A. Okay. And thank you very much, Dr. Joel Balson. And I have a question, and may I please encourage anyone who's present who has a question or who has a comment to please signify. But before then, I would like to know what the current practices around Mami Water are. Seeing that Nigeria has been significantly missionized, and there are so many factors that have led to the waning of several traditional institutions and practices. So I'd like to know, are you aware of the current state or the current belief around Mami Water in the eastern part of Nigeria today?
Thank you. The last time I was there was 2018. And, people still are longing for children, for sure, and for life to continue. At the same time, the proselytes, the Christian messages are very strong, and I must say vicious. There is, this witch hunting going on and a lot of negativity. But, people locally on the ground, there is one side is the official life, so to speak, and then the other side is what you believe or what you do. Of course, the practices in Okuta, for example, there were so many mami water priests and priestesses, let's say 10 years ago. Now, as far as I know, there is only one lady left after she took over from her mother, actually. And I don't know right this moment, how bad the pressure is on her from the parish priests and, these people. There's also, of course, a very strong colonial mentality, which means that people are abandoning their mother tongue. They think English is better than Igbo. They hope for money, when they see the riches presented by churches and so on. And so I think there is a slow death of the culture. And in my view, it is connected also to the rise of crime and to a lot of negative things, which we can observe. Unfortunately, it's not a nice picture, which I would paint today.
Thank you very much for that insightful response. And, one thing that I always think about is, when I hear about, our culture waning and people distancing themselves, or the demonization of certain African practices, I always think of economic implications. Yeah, like all of those things, like it means that we constantly buy, like we keep buying the Western culture, and, that means capital flight. And, I'm sure there are also several other implications for all of those things. And it's really disheartening to see the current trend. But at the same time, I'm beginning to see a silver lining in that you find a few people who are beginning to return. People who there is like a revival, a renaissance of some sorts, around African cultures. And that's why you find that in the West today, several, things, popular cultural materials are drawing on African heritage. The most recent being the Hollywood movie, The Woman King.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen
so I would want to go on and on, but I see that there is someone who wants to say something. Sloane Angelu, please, you may go ahead with your contribution.
Hi. Good evening, Dr. Sabine. So what I have is one question, and the second thing is probably like a commentary. But the first question is based off what Dr. Sabine said, something about trying to make the demarcations between the water priestesses and priests from the other people, like the traditional healers or something that the other people went to. I don't know about the rest of the world, but I know that in Igbo land, what you would call a priest or a priestess is an ezewai or ezewoke. And these other healers and masters of different fields would be the dibia. That's the demarcation. So my question from that is for Dr. Sabine, if during your research you were ever able to make a direct, I know the distinctions, but I mean with regards to, because we're talking about mami water now, talking about water, nemiri and all that, a direct distinction between the link between these DBS who are, the different professionals, doctors in different fields, and the Ezewine or Ezewoke who are the very specific priests and priestesses who have direct links to the water. I don't know if you're ever able to make that sort of distinction. Then the second thing I was going to say, which is more like a commentary, was just to encourage you to say, because you said something about, I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the moderator, but I know he just said something towards that now about the Renaissance. But I don't think we should be too discouraged. I don't know about on ground. I know there's a lot of things with the colonialism and all of that, but there is a very, very, very serious wave, very serious beyond the Hollywood movies and all of that, on ground, especially in the diaspora, among, again, the Igbo people in Igbo, who those are the ones I can speak for. Among the Igbo people, it's a very, very big wave of renaissance where people are starting to ask questions. People are starting to go back to even go as far as being initiated, not to.
Hello? Hello?
Is Sloane still there?
Hello, Salome.
Oh, hi. I
Oh,
don't know.
sorry.
I just got kicked out, sort of, but I'm back. Sorry, what I was saying was, yeah, which was to encourage Dr. Sabine that, yeah, there's a very serious wave of renaissance going on now, especially in the diaspora, where people are going as far as being initiated, not necessarily to the spiritual practice, which is ordinary, because you don't have to be initiated into that, but being initiated back as being Eze-wines or Eze-woke, the priests and priestesses, or even going as far as, you know, yeah, reactivating their links beyond Christianity and all of that back to the roots, you know, trying to go back to the ancient path and all of that. So I think we should be encouraged. We shouldn't be discouraged. It's not as bad. It's not as bad as it seems. In fact, this conference is a testament to that. So that was my commentary. But if you can answer the question I asked initially, that would be great.
Yes, sure. I'll start with the second part of what you're saying. Of course, the Igbo people, I mean, there is the Igbo Studies Association, which is an academic association based here in the United States, which sort of links between Nigeria and the United States. And the participants are studying Igbo culture in various aspects, and that's an amazing organization. And it includes people from different disciplines. I mean, physicians, historians, linguists, philosophers, etc. But don't remember, this is an academic organization. So I fear its reach to local communities is somewhat limited, because it's limited to people who have access to academia. You know, I completely agree with you that there is a desire to study and stop the destruction of indigenous cultures, instead study their values and importance. And the Igbo Studies Association is a very good example of that. There's also in London at SOAS, the Igbo conference, which used to take place every year. And it brings together people from a wider spectrum, not only academics, but also artists and scholars. And it's again focusing on the Igbo people. But, you know, there are different social levels. So when you go there and you go to a village or a town, you know, some people have in the association, in the Igbo Studies Association, they make very strong efforts. They start schools and they link very strongly with scholars in Nigeria and in other parts of Africa. But still, you know, there's a distance, a social distance to people on the ground who are being indoctrinated by this colonial mentality, unfortunately. Then the first part of your question about the Dibias and the Ezenwais and Ezenwas, I think Ezenwokas, perhaps I didn't make it clear enough. There are, you know, the priesthood of these deities is inherited. So it is traditionally belongs to particular lineages, and then within the lineage, either the oldest man or the oldest man would have this particular office, would hold that office. But in addition to being sort of entitled by inheritance, that person would also need to have a certain vocation to fulfill the office. Then the Dibias are diviners, and they could be, they are very often, I know several diviners, I knew several diviners who were at the same time, traditional priests of the water deities, they were the same person. Somebody who was entitled to become a traditional priest of the water deity was also a diviner. But then there are other diviners from different lineages or who become diviner by vocation. Now the Mami Water priests and priestesses and healers and diviners are, if you wish, their own category. There are people who access this office by way of illness, actually. And there is, I was told that there is a proverb in Igbo. I can't say it in Igbo, but it says something like, the best doctor is the person who has suffered the disease himself or herself. So there is a way of becoming a healer via initiation and healing, and then attain the knowledge about these herbal plants and so on via vocation. Illness, vocation, healing through another healer, herbalist, and then eventually becoming a healer and a diviner and a priest or priestess or just a devotee. But the point is that this access route is actually via vocation, a special vocation. And these are very extraordinary people. So I don't know, does this make the distinction clear to you? Does it explain it?
Yes, it's brilliant. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I will move on to the next question. And this is from Dr. Paris. It says, in Igbo mythology, is the snake considered different from the larger python? And what about the serpent in the Judeo-Christian Bible?
Well, okay, the python is really special. It's a special type of snake. It's very big. But on the other hand, I have seen a Mami Water priestess delightfully picking up the skin of a cobra, a black cobra, and putting it in her pocket and just being so happy having found it. So the snake is special. It's it is admired for its ability to shed its skin and to move between life and death. But among the snakes, I would say the python is really the very special one that some people in the past, adored the python, and they buried the creature like a human being if it was accidentally killed. I have been told that in Benin, not Benin Republic, but Benin, Edo speaking, some people even kept pythons as pets. I mean, hard to imagine that, but I don't know. I've seen pythons very near people's homes when they lay eggs, and when they suddenly there were little baby pythons in somebody's backyard, and they would not kill them. They would just take them and carefully remove them to the bush somewhere where they could live, because it's not so nice to have a python in your house. It's a little scary. I've seen a very giant python. I've met one at the Njaba River. It was just sitting there, a huge coil, looked like wheels, car wheels, huge pile. And women were just washing their laundry right next to it, and children were playing. And I was like scared stiff. I mean, I didn't want to move even or do anything. But there is a kind of symbiosis, and the python is really, really a very special creature, and that's in many African communities. You find that also in Kenya, for example. So I think that maybe that answers your question.
Thank you very much. And for now, I'll be taking the final question. After the second presentation, we'll return to questions from either of the presenters. So now I'd like to take Onyeka. Please go ahead with your question. Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Sabina.
Hi, Onyeka.
I miss you.
Me too.
it's mine is contribution. It's not really a question. I've known Dr. Sabina since I was young. She lived in my mother's town, and she has a strong connection with my maternal family. And I've learned most of the things I know about Obwide from her. And I wouldn't call her a stranger at all. So she's a Wefi in Uguta, which is a title that they don't just give to anyone. And whatever project Dr. Sabina has done on Uguta is authentic. I can confirm any of that. The people she's spoken to, the people she's lived with. In fact, it might interest you that I got to meet the Ezewani of Uguta through her, who happens to be my mom's cousin. So she was the one who introduced me to my own mother's cousin in Uguta. So she's an authority on Igbo cosmology. And I think it's important, which is one of the reasons why I'm also in England, to tell my own story by myself. It's been a long time we have allowed, or we have continued to mesmerize ourselves by Europeans coming to tell our own story to us. And we're not even making any effort to uplift them or praise them and give them their flowers. We just feel like we're entitled to the job they are doing on us. So it's also one of the reasons why I started the James Corey Society to tell the Europeans, what can we do for you? I'm eternally grateful to Dr. Sabina. Not only does she support me emotionally, financially, anywhere. I mean, she's one of my support systems. So I'm grateful that we are listening to her as well. And she has this bulky book, which I have my own copy in my room here, that she's taking her time to write. And I think it's important that every African intellectual or every home in Nigeria should have a copy of the book. It's very important. I have seen all the digital Obanjes and all the digital Zewani, all the children who don't, after secondary school, they don't have any other thing to do because they say there is no employment. So they make themselves Ezewanis and Ezewokers and all those nonsense brouhaha online. And then they come and start telling you your vision and stuff and collect money from you because these are unlearned youth. People haven't read anything. People haven't even been to Uguta itself. Who don't know the source of Orashi or the source of Obid and all that. But this is what Dr. Sabina has done incredibly well. And I hope that in the future that we will organize a big conference where we will honor her alone for this work she's been doing. A conference named after her while she's still alive or something, or something of that nature. And I'm not doing this to patronize you. You know how much I adore you. So
thank you very much, Onyeka.
Thank you. Thank you for this.
Because of time. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
That's my contribution, not a question.
Okay.
I'm honored.
Thank you so much, Onyeka.
Bless you.
So at this point, we take the next speaker, who is Sharon. Okay, and so she'll be spotlight. We'll put her in the spotlight for everyone. And I think Dr. Kununji, please. Should I go ahead with the biography, right? Okay, so Sharon had a BA in both American and Area Studies from Humboldt University of Berlin, Germany. She has over 15 years of working experience as a freelancer in the field of art, photography, design, teacher, advisor, mentor, and language teaching. Sharon has taught German courses to foreign undergraduate students at Humboldt University of Berlin, Germany. She's currently enrolled in Canadian Studies at the Department of Northern Europe Institute, and she's about to complete a program in American Studies in Berlin. And she has also participated in students exchange program within Europe and will continue to do so in near future. So at this point, Sharon, You have the floor. You can share your screen now. I've enabled that. So you can share screen and then go ahead with your presentations. Sharon, we can't hear you. You are not muted, but we can't hear you. Hello? Your audio device, the button is not showing, and your voice is, we can't hear you. Hello, Sharon, if you can hear me, do you mind unplugging and replugging your audio device? Or because it's your audio, yes, it's now showing, then you can unmute yourself, now you can hear yourself.
Is it better now?
Right, we can hear you now.
Okay. So I'll just start again. Yes, good evening, everyone. Here in Germany, in Berlin, it's evening. And I thank you very much for inviting me to this session. My topic is about shapes, identities, views, and perspectives, not directly related to Black History Month, but the month is not yet over and it is supposed to be Black History Month. So please don't be irritated by the black being crossed, but a little bit it's about this in my presentation. It's also about how identities are being shaped. And before I go ahead, I would like to introduce to you the content. I would first give a little introduction that I've already started, like to finish with the introduction. Then the next sections will deal with a poem of mine called Dressed for Success, and followed by how I got inspired by Gloria Anzaldúa and what it is that a little bit shaped me and what I'm fond of. And I went as far as to write a paper about it. And that is followed by food choices. I have an image there that I would like to show you. It's part of my photography. And then followed by Time, which is another poem, rather a haiku. So we have 3 lines here. And then I'll conclude and sources are added in case you would like to look up one or the other thing. And then the floor is open for questions and answers. Here, when we look at identities and how they're being shaped, there is the possibility that you create your own identity or even more than one, which means you have different ways of being. The other possibility is it happens on the outside. How do people perceive you? How do people behave and interact with you based on what you look like and how you look like? It's not only the way you're dressed, maybe the way you behave, And it goes as far as these people trying to shape you, although you're shaped according to maybe your own standards. So the interaction that I would like to point out here is mostly based on my own personal, my personal, how can I say, experience and also interest. I'm very fond of meeting people and finding out if these people I interacted with did something to me, maybe changed me, maybe influenced me, or yeah, or maybe I got into a conflict. Then there is this part about views and perspectives. That is, you interact with different people, and then it's like you reflect maybe during the process or a little while afterwards, and then some of the experiences you made might just influence you, might be something you would rethink, maybe would like to take over. And on the other hand, in doing so, you change yourself, and then you get into the stage of appearing a little bit different, or a little bit different in a way that you think you have improved yourself, hopefully, or I think it happens kind of subconsciously. And then how do you interact with the next people you meet, and what effects does this have on these people? And to me, it's like an ongoing story. So we come to history, and yeah, in making this processes, this experiences, you create a history. So that's where I come in to say, and that's my thesis here, it cannot be just Black only. Okay. Dressed for Success is a poem. I wrote this in 2020. I don't know, should I read it out, or? Okay, I just read it out. What wasn't success for me? To just eat, sleep, and then hit repeat. And what was success to me? It meant to be me and live a happy life. What wasn't making me feel success? Being pushed around by others like a fool. And what was it like to feel successful? Being an agent of myself and life. What wasn't helping to achieve this success? To become what I wasn't, or what I didn't want. What was useful to achieve success? Again, to first get dressed for success. So in writing this, I was in a situation, it was this COVID time, wearing a mask. This inspired me. There were so many questions to it. Should I wear a white mask? Should I wear a black mask? Should I wear a painted mask? A mask I painted myself, or whatever. So that's where it started. And then realizing that I met other people, some would prefer not to wear a mask. And that's where I got into interactions with people thinking differently from what I was thinking. So we had a conflict here. And in talking about what kind of a mask to wear, should I wear the super safe mask or just a simple medical mask? So there were so many questions to this, and I started interacting with people, trying to find out how they find it or what they think about it, and to also try to make up my mind based on what are facts, what is useful, what is complete nonsense. And then I had as an artist, you also try to experiment. So I had phases where I was wearing a white mask every day. And then I tried it with wearing a mask in black. And I couldn't believe it, but I felt differently wearing a black mask. And I also felt that people treated me differently wearing a black mask. So wearing a white mask, life was kind of less complicated. And with complicated, I mean, I wouldn't say my life is complicated based on what I look like, but now with the mask, it was a clear color white, a clear color black, and it was there was nothing in between. So I consider myself a person somewhere in between, and it's a range of from one end to the other, somewhere in between. It could be more to one pole or more to the other pole. It just depends on how I feel, what I encountered, people I met, what am I busy with, thinking about and talking about. So mostly, if I'm not successful, it doesn't matter what it is. I first try to figure out, was it my mistake? Where did I go wrong? And then if I can't find anything, then I go to other possibilities outside of myself. So there, sometimes it's experience, sometimes it's maybe also accepting, okay, that's the way it is. Or sometimes it's on the outside based on the mindset of my opposite, of the person I had an interaction with. And somehow I didn't feel successful. So I grew up with this hair you can see. So this image here next to my poem is not there by accident. So my hair is also like somewhere in between from one end to the other. And even the color is also not completely, it's hard to tell actually what it is. So right now I experience having more gray hair. So there is a new element coming in. People, it doesn't matter who would like to touch my hair, either to tell me how to wear my hair or tell me how to comb my hair, how to wash my hair, and that I should that I need a haircut. Really some basic things, but I was always like thinking, should I address this, like mirror this, like talk to this opposite in the very same manner this person dared to talk to me? That's where I started to do some experiments. So one time I experienced this, I talked back. Another time I just didn't say anything, meaning, yeah, a lot of people have told me this. What do I care if it's one more telling me this? In the end, I always did it my way. And I think this is what I am addressing here when I write a line that says being pushed around by others like a fool. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be like that. And I want to become what I want and not what someone else wants. And it should be what I really want and not something I kind of was forced to become. So that's where I decided to go on with the experiment. So I asked my opposite, so how about you? Don't you think your hairstyle is not appropriate? So that person, to my astonishment, stepped back, was super perplexed. He didn't expect such a comment that I made. And I must admit that person just walked away without commenting anything anymore. So this made me feel stronger. So many such experiences I gathered actually made me become what I am now. So I still wear my hair the way I wore it then. So I never changed anything about it. And I feel very comfortable. It also means I wouldn't, people would say, straighten them to get a better position or whatever. I think it's not actually what I want, so I won't do it. And it doesn't mean that I end up being unsuccessful. So this poem is a poem that means so much to me. It's actually about trying to be happy in life, knowing that I might always encounter people who might want to see me in a certain position so that it fits them. So if I go on, and I can see there is a chat entry. Yeah. Yes, I'm checking time. Thanks for the reminder. So if I go on with Inspired by Gloria Anzaldúa, this is where I try to find words for this experience, for this feelings, or for this, what I think occupied my mind for a pretty much long time. And I also called it to be a crossroads. So it's about this being somewhere in between, not quite on one end and not quite on the other end, but not fixed on a spot somewhere in between, always moving, shifting, floating, flowing. So it's actually positive, but you have to discover this. So I take it a step ahead to say that actually every human being is affected by this being a crossroads, and it doesn't actually play a role. Why? Because somehow you are, and this is what I think makes every single human being so unique. Okay. All right, so I'll continue due to time. And here's the photograph of a dish I produced. This has to do with going back to Anzaldúa. She died of diabetes, complications of that illness. This also inspired me because I was told by my doctor that I might be likely to suffer from that if I don't watch what I eat, if I don't move, like do some sports. So yeah, since then I went into food and how to live more healthily. That's why I added this in here, because it also inspired me to take a photograph of everything I cook just to document it. It's fun and part of my artwork. And finally, I have a haiku here, which deals with time. So now time's up, I guess. So it fits.
Thank you very much, Sharon. And your poem, and when you were planning to give this presentation, you talk about it's going to be from what we call it. It's going to be from an experiential and phenomenological point of view, which is more or less something subjective. And listening to this presentation, I personally writing to make a summary, I was like as transcendental, part of the thing you started with is with the identity, and your approach is rather than quoting a lot of things, what is identity, what is black, what is white, you use the experience of the mask and the experience of the masks that someone wear and how one is being related to. And part of this is Black History Month, and when we're preparing for this webinar, we have we don't have an umbrella framework for the entire conversation, but we said we're going to have it in that just open jacket. But you've taken us through a journey as an artist, creative artist, to look at how perception change, how experience change, how people are being viewed, and the things you regarded to as artwork, let's say, for instance, that food or your air, and so let's say, for instance, the artist that designed the flyer, for instance, look at when you send a picture across and the artist look at it and said, why is the head scattered, and, oh, you can use graphic work and rearrange the air using graphic works and all these things. And in your explanation, it tells us how we perceive others, how when people see. So when someone sees me, like a person says something derogatory, and I see it as easily, I can say this is a racist, but it's the lens through which the person sees reality. Is a lens through which the person interprets reality. Is a lens, and there was an instance as we giving your presentation, and I was just writing to really make a recap, and I reminded an image that was posted on Facebook of a Ghanaian in 1960, and the Ghanaian was tying a wrapper, the normal Ghanaian dress, and the picture shows how people were looking at him, like. Some were looking at him, disgustingly, and really some people posted some things on the comments that, who goes around with the bed sheet early in the morning when everyone is running up and down at the beginning of the day in London to start their work. Now, to someone is looking at what the Ghanaian is wearing as a bed sheet that he put around himself. Now, how does the other person feels when what the person's represent looks like, or the way what the person's food looks like, what the person's faces look like? How will the person feels when you say, what is this you are eating? Or what is this, look at your hair too? But it's because, there seems to be like a norm, a standard that is already given. This is how a human hair should be. This is how a human food should be. This is how, and anything outside of it, right, is considered anomalies. And when you are, as a person, you're a carriage of even an identity that is considered as an anomaly, instead of questioning or interrogating the other person, what you do is you're trying to fit what is considered to be the norm. But on your own, you said you ask the person back. You ask the person, what makes your hair is not normal too? And that was a bit the person to start it back. What are you talking about? And this the presentation and the experiential portray is really very fundamental. And I think that takes to the exhibition that I'm having. Before we're going to take I know a lot of people have gone in thoughts. I can see Dr. Sabine too, she has gone in thoughts, Dr. Jim, and other people, participants who are in the background, who are listening to in the background. And it takes us to this the whole thing about blackness, whiteness, cultural heritage, arts, as Dr. Sabine presented in our work, the current interpretations of what we call it, of the artworks, in Africa after the post-colonial era. So the title of my own presentation, which is also an exhibition of a completed project. I don't know if I'm sharing the slides or sharing something else. Okay, so I can put that in full screen from beginning, yeah. Is a project that I designed. I'm a digital humanist, which is engaging digital the conversation in the humanities, expressing them in a digital form, sharing it in a digital form, and as well as publications and addresses using current digital computational methodologies. The project, this digital humanity project entitled Paint Me Black, you can find it simply in the website www.paintmeblack.com. When I was working on it, you know, I was currently in Africa then, right? And I know that I'm going to Europe, right? And I'm going to be painted black. But you know, I've been thinking about it. What is it about this blackness? You know, this whole idea of black. You know, and you know, nobody's black. Even we can have brown, we can do all these things. So, and but for me, it's no longer derogatory because on the Facebook, on Twitter, and other media, we see a lot of people having a lot of channels that is black business, black dating, black this, black pride. And then the whole question comes in that, the blackness, it was developed because before the African, you know, African diaspora. It could be African British, African Americans, African German, African whatever, before they could even come to the scene to talk about what they are, because they were enslaved. It was already developed, and it has meaning, it has interpretation, it has a lot of representation. But they accepted it, and they said, we are rebranding it, right? And those of us who are Africans from the continent coming to the diaspora cannot, you know, remake what that is, but can only observe the process of how we are being transformed into the black. And that is, and the questions remain: what is still black? What is Africa? Now, if I proceed to ask us a question, we can think about this. Imagine this is a descendant of an enslaved African. So who is he, right? So we're going to say he's black, he's an African American, or some will say I'm American. So we have those who will say I'm black, and some will say I'm African American, and some who will say I'm American. I don't know what you're talking about African. You sold us anyway, right? And that is an identity. Everyone is free to take the choice of the one they want to adopt. If you look at the descendant of an African immigrant who has not traveled at all, who has not gone out of Britain or Germany or what do we call it, of America, and we say, who is she? Now, if we say she's an African, she does not even know how to greet as an African. She does not even know any African language, right? She does not, and you say she's black, but obviously from her complexion, she's not black. And she does not represent any of what they mean by black when black was invented. Then you say she's an African American, and she says, no, I'm not an African American. Africans that eat human beings, Africans that they're seeing poverty, in sickness, and in diseases, you know. And then you say she's an American. She says she's not, she doesn't know we are marginalized in this country. So I'm using an America as a case study. And this can be replicated across other, you know, phrases across Europe and Canada and other spaces where we have African. And then the question comes up, is he an African? You know this gentleman, right? So is he an African? Is he Kenyan? Is he black? Is he African American? Is he, you know, and this whole question comes up. You know, some people now comes up when we have people who are considered African Americans take up African wares, you know, even the most expensive ones. And people say, is this cultural appropriation? Who are these people? And the other story say, no, it's not African. No, it's an African. And then the whole question comes up. And then is it black? You know, and then you know this lady anyway, and that's the follow-up of this. But I looked at the, you know, when I was trying to look at the whole framework of Paint Me Black research, right? Which I can share the website, or you can also go there on your own. I look at some of these, what we call it, some of these dynamics were the things I looked at. And I looked at it that, you know, the whole idea of African and African identity, you know, can be appropriated. You can accept it, right? You can affiliate it to yourself. Maybe you are a person of African descent and you have not traveled, or you are someone who loves Africa, like Sabine, for instance. You know, she's been in Africa, she writes about Africa, and she loves Mami Water Goddess. But what defined the essence, the whole thing of Africanness, and how were those things in forms of arts being represented? You know, in forms of human embodiments, like beads, in forms of clothing, you know, and in forms of hairstyle. You know, currently we know that they are now trying to, in the diaspora, in some countries now, they're trying to see how do we legalize African hair, you know, because a lot of people have, this is inappropriate or all this other thing. And, you know, what about sculpture? You know, because, so for me, it's not within the scope of my research to say, oh, bring back our hearts or to talk about other things. But, you know, you look at what we can say, the methodology, which is social media analytics. So I have to do what we can say mining of charts that people are having on some of this thing, on hair, on clothing, on hairstyle, based in relation to identity and their interpretation. And when I looked at, let's say, sculpture or artwork, you will hear some artists saying, we can't return those artworks because before we took them and called them arts, they don't even know it's art. They were just making it. If a spider is making a beautiful cobwebs, doesn't know means that a spider understands fractals and all about asymmetries. And that is the whole thing that we can't. They're going to spoil it. It's not safe in their spaces. And, you know, all this together, and then the whole idea of mask. So within the embodiment of the work is collation of the research collates. What are the interpretations? What are the understanding? When people look at it, what comes to your mind? And that's why you see on the website, apart from displaying some of the ones that are free in the public domain, then what comes to your mind comes up. What comes to your mind? You can write your name. What strikes you? What is the message? You know, and you know, based on the conversation we have been having in this particular webinar, that all of them have been represented in a derogatory work, just as the way Blackness has been represented. And for me, it takes back to the whole conclusion of, you know, what impacts this is going to make in the whole research. It's all understanding of reconciling when you reject Blackness and when you reject Africanness too. And when anyone rejects that, what is the reason? It comes to the subconscious, it comes to the unperceived, it comes to the, and how do we undo that? You know, how do we undo that? Interesting enough, you know, I just have to, at the beginning of Dr. Sabine's, she was talking about the whole destruction of, or reconstructing the damage of what we can say colonial mentality. And so this whole conversation can be on, is a virtual project on. There's a Google document for that. The ARN2 as a team, we're also working on a book entitled The Rationality, you know, and the aesthetics of African arts, music, and fractals and other framework. So these are some of the things. If you're part of this, you can join us, you can contribute a chapter, and then you can also contribute to the conversation. So this ends the whole exhibition and presentation. And if you have questions, I think the moderator, Dr. Kunuchi, takes over, and we can be able to relate based on all the other presentations we have had. Thank you very much for listening.
Wow, thank you all for the insightful and provocative presentations. And I must say that, you know, we're really honored to be able to tap a bit into your wealth of knowledge. And we do not take this for granted. Thank you very much. So to our audience, if anyone has any question or any comment that's related to today's presentation, please indicate by a show of hand. Okay, I have one person already, Khadija Chegui. I'm not very sure how to pronounce your name. Please pardon me. Please go ahead and make your contribution.
Yes, thank you, Joseph. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you so much. Augustine, I'm sorry that I can't put my video on. I'm not in a situation that I can. So this is just a commentary that through which I will come back to the first presentation by Professor Sabine, is that art contributes, of course, to keeping the indigenous African knowledge into life, but also academic institutions have to play that role. And I think teaching and reading African literature to the new generations can contribute to this. Reading, for example, the works of Wallace Shawinka, the Nobel laureate, of course, teaching about his Idanre and other poems, his Ogon Abibiman, his Dance of the Forests, his Death and the King's Horseman, all of these are great works. This is just a very small segment of an example, but there are many other examples we can bring across Africa, can really transmit how much myth, the tales of the fathers, their stories, they are all very well integrated into these works of literature. So reading them, organizing reading workshops will really contribute so much into keeping this knowledge going on. And at least I remember, because I'm a North African, we have also a very complex heritage to deal with in here. But this is a thing that I started to do when I was given the opportunity to teach African studies here in the department. I changed everything. And the very first schedule I was given starts with slavery in Africa, and was very disappointed to be given this schedule. So I turned things upside down, and I brought an entire new schedule that starts with pre-colonial traditional African societies that goes back to classical times, and insisting how Africa has taken from the entire world, but also the entire world has taken from Africa. So the best way to teach Africa is through digging deeper into this beautiful intersectionality. So which means that the foreign element coming to Africa, Africa taken from the foreign element, this is what represents us as Africans really. So our indigenous element that cross-fertilizes through the foreign elements, bringing them together, but not teaching one at the expense of the other. And I think this really can contribute greatly to transmit what it means really to be African with its very complex modern identity. Thank you for all of your interventions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution. And, I think it's quite important to reinforce the notion of African literature. I think it's a very great place to start. Reading and exposing ourselves to materials that have been written by Africans particularly. We have a very good number of them, very insightful materials and artworks that are out there. And thank you very much for mentioning that. So do we have anyone else with a question while we wait for someone else? I can see Dr. Sabine's hand. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, I just have a quick question to Sharon and also to Augustine. The both of you are focused on the images, persons' images in relationship to identity. And my question to the both of you actually is, can you add something about language, the importance of language? Or where does language come in this relationship to a person's identity?
Can I go first?
Please, you may.
I exhibited some artworks of mine, and it was like it was in a gallery, we had a vernissage. So that was like the first day, and I was there, I was present next to my works. When I was outside, just to take some fresh air, I talked to some people there, And that was before I was introduced as the artist. Then they were looking at my work, and this is language already because we're talking about my work without the person knowing that I was the artist. So it ended up, or I ended up finding out that I was doing European art when I was introduced as the artist. Then people, you know, taking their small chunks of food and some wine, walking around, trying to talk to me about my art. Oh, I can see some African elements in there. It's African art. And I go like, how come? Yeah, you look like African. I don't know. I was just at the brink of bursting out into laughter. I just couldn't believe it, that in the end, it's the way I look that gives meaning to my work and not what the people are actually looking at in the first place, my artwork. And then, you know, so it's European because it's exhibited in Berlin, in Europe, in Germany, and not somewhere else. And without knowing what the artist looks like, because my name doesn't suggest it's African. So as the artist of the work, I was introduced with my Nigerian second name, which is Alero. And still they were talking about this art as being European. So yeah, I was surprised.
Interesting. And over to over to Augustine. I think you're muted. So would you like to respond to the same question?
Yeah, the question with regards to the language and identity, it's a little bit complex, but I'm going to come from a subjective point of view too. In the sense that if I studied philosophy in my first and second degree, and I studied basically French, German, and British philosophy. And my favorite philosopher is Heidegger. And so I read his work cover to cover and tried to look at various interpretations. And that was something I was proud of, right? But am I going to be considered, you know, coming to conferences and giving presentations at Heidegger's forum or conferences where we have people who speak Germans or people who understand German and who have read Heidegger, and some people know the direction to his father's house or his relatives' places. I look like an imposter, yeah, when I talk about Heidegger or when I talk about these people, because it's like a machine that you just process certain things into his brain, and because it has nothing to reflect me, and they're not accepting that, because you know you don't it's just like the current thing that is going on in present what do we call it, present politics in the UK, you know, about someone being a British prime minister and being British or not being British, you know. So this is not like maybe an African form of German or an African interpretation of Heidegger's work, or something lower to it. Now, to go back to the question, because I know Doctor asked it in relation to originality and how people have abandoned our language. I personally found it interesting to do a research in my Yoruba and to take theory from that. I stopped the previous other things I was doing. And I come to realize, thank God, thank goodness, even though I did not study Yoruba officially, like you can't be reading Yoruba as a young person when, you know, in Nigeria, for instance, and your parents will be proud of you. They say, go and pick maths or English or something reasonable that can better your future. But informally, we learn it, right? And I have to go back to that. And when I come up with theories, like the last publication that I had with Dr. Akimayo, we come up with Ojilorowa, which is a saying as a maxim in Yoruba culture and as a template for software development. you know, and it was something that people took serious. It was published by an international journal, and the originality, the whole thing of, and for me as a person, I see that when we talk about identity, we should take language serious. On my own, I try, like I'm not just learning Yoruba alone, but I know that the limit of your language is also the limit of your world. So I try to also learn other African languages. Now, which one do we give priority to? Oh, that's complex, because it talks about which one is being rewarded or you're going to be rewarded for. But in the present, the whole theoretical framework that we put anything African languages into the background, anything African to the background, I think the thing has changed. And that is what we can say the paradigm shift. Now people are looking at you presenting something as an African, coming with originality, rather than the previous thing of I should be shy about my Africanness. And now we should be proud. And when you as someone of diaspora, like when people are African American, African British, African German, and others, comes to the African space, they are highly appreciated. When someone like Dr. Sabine comes to the African space, she's appreciated. She wants to study our stuff. She wants to know a language. She's a chief, just like the way our brother just did in the whole thing. For me as a person, the language is important, and I know that we have people who are of African descent who are on this platform. Whatever you can, forget about the days of derogatory. Now the world needs our input for global contribution. And that is what Dr. Khadija too highlighted there. Thank you for asking this question.
Thank you all. I'm really, really, really grateful to you all. Personally, I wouldn't want us to go beyond the next top of the hour in the seminar, but I would still want to take a few questions. So I'll just say that in your responses, kindly just make them quite brief and straight to the point. I also have a question. Like, my idea or my conceptualization of Africanness or Blackness is that they're all constructs. Because if you look at all the people that are referred to as Africans or Blacks, they are quite heterogeneous. It's a very heterogeneous category. Like, you see a North African and an East African. Sometimes they look nothing alike. And they don't speak the same language. They don't express like, they don't share similar beliefs. They don't have the same values. They don't have the same. So that makes me to want to ask that, shouldn't we just allow everyone to be whatever they want to be, rather than policing and insisting that, okay, you do not have the right skin color to tell the story, or you do not have the right, like, you don't stay on the continent. Like, I teach African music, for instance, and I keep asking, like, one of the questions that I'm yet to really, what exactly is African music? Is it the music of people from this continent? Then what do you say about the diasporic retentions of African practices? In Cuba, where you have Yoruba speaking people, you have Brazil, Yoruba speaking people, in Trinidad and Tobago. And, I'm not just talking about textbooks. I've met people from these places who are Yoruba people. And so what exactly is Africa? What exactly is Blackness? For someone like me, for instance, when I came into South Africa, that was when I became racially conscious. I became conscious of my race, because I grew up among Black people and there was nothing like Black. Like, so at best, my understanding of Blackness is acquired. I can never really be Black because it's not my reality. Like, I totally honor and respect, the struggle of, those who exist in, say, in the US, or those who live in South Africa, who are historically marginalized and all that. But my understanding of it can never be perfect, yet I am treated as Black. So my question, back to my question is, what are we not supposed to just allow people be whatever and whoever, rather than imposing this framework and, you know, this category, imposing it and saying you're Black? Should we not rather just fight against categories? I don't know who wants to respond to that. Sharon, please go ahead.
I can give it a try. I can always speak on behalf of myself, because I can't look into other people, or I would even have to ask people if I can talk about them to be respectful. So again, looking at myself, I behave the way I feel and want and think it's right. And I've also heard some people say, she doesn't behave like a typical Black person. And I go like, what is that?
Identity
I am
police.
German. Okay, I think that says it all.
Thank you very much. Yeah, who else wants to respond to that? I can see Dr. Joel Balsin's hand. Please go ahead.
Okay, I would like to say that it's important to realize, you know, the question of Blackness, whiteness, you know, whatever, relates to the question of race. And what I would like to say is that race is a political concept. There is no really very good explanation for it. I mean, if you do it by blood groups, by skin color, there are no boundaries. You know, the blood groups are, there's no one group that has only one particular blood group, and then, you know, it intersects with other blood groups or skin colors. Where exactly is the borderline between black and white? You can't see, because it is, you can't even say, because it has all kinds of shades. But race is a political concept. It has been used by political reasons historically. For example, in South Africa, you will know, and I can say from my own experience in Germany, that in our history, during the Nazi period, of course, race was introduced as a concept in the Nürnberger Gesetze, and people were classified accordingly. So some people were classified as Aryans, and others were classified as non-Aryans, and some were classified as Jews, and others were nothing, because they didn't fit the political scheme. So in short, it's a totally artificial concept, and the same applies to black and white and any other color. Actually, it's artificial. It's a political concept. It has something to do with power and the way people use or abuse their power and victimize others. And they take that concept of color or race for a political purpose. And we know it from history, and we know it from what's going on, you know, in the world right now. And we should really, I think we should stay clear of it. And I've had, of course, I had, how shall I put it, discussions with African Americans who very strongly identify with the concept of race and blackness, because they say, oh, we have suffered so much for our race and our blackness that we don't want to give it up. But I'm really convinced that it's a dangerous concept, it's a political concept, and the purpose of the concept is abuse of power.
Thank you very much for that short and sweet response. Okay, I would like to keep to my promise of keeping this short and sweet, but I see Khadija's hand up.
Yes.
So we'll make it very brief. And
yes,
then
very, very, very brief. And this is just complementary to what Sabine was talking about. We have to remember the colonial legacy. We have to remember what happened in Rwanda for the Hutu and the Tutsi, what French colonialism did here in North Africa, in Algeria, between Arabis, those who were called Arabis, then the original Berber populations, the idea of divide and rule. So race was politicized, and it was a colonial creation in most cases. That's why now, and I think it's a very big challenge for African politicians and leaders to create an intercontinental or cross-continental road that links, for example, South Africa and Algeria for a better economy, for a transcontinental road like what's going on in Europe, for example. So I think we have to remember this. And the moment we remember, we forget about race, we forget about color, forget about all of this, and we remember that Africa is the birthplace of a human civilization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very short and sweet indeed. I'll hand over to Augustine to do the announcement, and then
Okay.
yeah.
And I think I also, there was a question that was also asked that I did not respond to, which I know I'm moderating as well as presenting. So maybe I would just like to also respond to that questions that was asked with regards to you raised the question anyway, with regards to destruction of categorization completely. And for me, I would say that everything is social construct, everything, even name of countries and everything, they are social, even the name I bear is just social construct. Some people gather in the village and agreed to say that's the name is going to be, but how the social construct is being used. The whole thing of African Black and African American, the way I've seen people accepting it is they use it differently. So somebody will use the card of Black when they want. So, and I've seen the works of politicians, big authors and other people, they take the one they want to use at each point. So at some point they're African American, at some point they're Black, and at some point they're just Americans. And for me, categorization should be destroyed, to summarize it. It should be destroyed because the world has introduced a concept where you can be what you want to be. So if tomorrow I declare myself a cat, or I declare myself a dog, or I declare myself anything, because people now declare themselves any gender they want to be. People declare themselves whatever they want to be. So why should people now be placed in a particular box and say, you have to be this? My sister here, Sharon, she declared herself as a German. But they're trying to say, you go back to the Black box or go back to the African box. You can't just claim. And that is where we're saying you cannot, the world is fighting hard to protect gender, to protect every other forms of identity. But they are trying to say, for you, the Blacks, or for you, whatever we have called you before, it shall remain. And anytime you want to escape from that bracketing, you shall not. That's just a summary. So thank you very much. And I think the host asked me to make an announcement. On behalf of the entire African Researchers Network, I want to thank everyone, especially those who waited to the end. Today's own started 5 o'clock, 6, 7, and we have been here for 2 hours. So I want to appreciate you for your time. Those who are joining us from other part of Africa, most especially from North Africa, and the contribution, and also from West Africa, and all the people from South Africa, and from Germany, from US, from the UK. So we are not many, but we represent the diaspora framework. Well, thank you for your time, for your ideological contributions. And the next webinar is being planned by Yokiam Debali, who is the Director of Publicity. And the title of the webinar is Health and Wellness in Africa and the African Diaspora. So it will be on the November 26th. And we're going to send out all other information about it. Finally, if you want to join the conversation or you want to be part of ARN and anything, I'm going to drop, or you can request for the WhatsApp link. So that's where we have some of our members anytime you want to still be in touch. And then you can also go to the website to also join if you want to be a member. African Researchers Network is open to conversation of this nature, to other research. And I look forward to a webinar that we are planning to, that Dr. Khadija, who is in North Africa, that's a different experience entirely. And we are looking forward to the presentation because, you know, the old Blackness, they are not Black. They are not Black in look, they are white, or they are, so how do you interpret? And then, so how do you, the old monotonous or singular bracketing? So we look forward to that, and we thank everyone. Dr. Jim, we thank you for your time. He's member of the board, if you don't have anything to say. And Dr. Sidney, who has also recommended Dr. Sabine to us. Dr. Sidney has always been part of African Researchers Network, like a father. I always say, like, he's a father to us, you know, and he guides us even when we want to go astray, you know. Some of us want to go astray because we are still humans, you know, and we thank you, everyone, and we hope to see you again. Sabine, thank you. Sharon, Thank you so much. You are guest speakers, and we appreciate the time and energy. Have a lovely evening and enjoy the rest. Bye.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
A few people have requested for the link of the WhatsApp group, so kindly just post it before.
Okay, I'll drop that before closing the channel. So I'll just drop that into the chat now. Okay.
Where's the link?
I'm trying to copy it now. Just a minute, and then I'll close the channel. So invite. Okay, so here comes the link to, okay. So if you just click that to take you, and then we close that after the event, we just close it.